As promised, here another video. In this video I'd like to show how I model a last for a real client. In this picture you see several things. First you see the left and the right last, the blue ones, this one and this one. And here you see two scans of foot casts. I don't scan the foot directly, I first make casts and I scan the cast. This way I'm sure that I have it the foot in the right position. As for toe off, heel lift, pronation, supination, all that kind of stuff. Also the plantar surface of the foot is not flattened as in most scanners when you stand on a flat surface. I don't want a flat surface on the plantar surface of the foot. When you look at the last, it's much more curved. The second thing I have here are those two blueprints. I use them to check measurements, although measurements are not very precise. That's not a subject. But you know, it's nice to have a reference. Also, when you cast a foot, there's a tendency that you squeeze the foot a bit too much. I try to avoid it, but you know, it's not always perfect. Anyway, um, there are two lasts, the left and the right. When I change the left last, the right one follows. This is crazy last, but you see that the right one follows what I do on the left one. I can also start with the right last. No copy. You see, and so I always think before I start, will I start with the left last or the right last? Normally I choose the most normal shaped foot. When there's a big difference between left and right, I start with the most normal foot. Another thing is when you have to think about at what point you break the connection between left and right. So normally I start with left, and when I'm happy with the last on the left side, then I go to the right side and see if I'm happy with that too. Sometimes I can keep them the same. Most of the time I have to make individual changes, left and right. Okay, first thing, I'll hide right. I'll start with left now. And the first thing is I make this last a bit transparent so it's easier to see what I'm doing. And I'll hide the blueprints. And I can go to this. First, I just use a simple scaling to get more or less the shape I want. I try to keep the shapes as equal as possible. And I scale a bit in this direction. Okay, this comes close enough. And now I'm going to use this cage as the control for the last. I'll lock this last, the scan, otherwise I'll be dragging the scan around and I don't want that. I want to keep it where it is. I'll lock that. So. And now I select this control. And I make this one the cage. So first thing you see is that I have not enough room here on the fifth toe, so I take these and I make it a bit wider. And take these, make it a bit wider. Okay, just more or less bring it close to the scan. Important is the heel. You see he has a lot of space. The reason I do this and not automate this process is that I want to have a last that has the control points at meaningful places. I can automatically generate a last, but then it has control points at places I don't want. You know, well, I'm just okay. You see there's not enough room for the toe in my opinion, especially for orthopedic last. It also depends on what type of shoe you want to make. Will make a dress shoe or a worker's boot. You need more space, of course. Okay, this comes close enough. There was a bit of pronation in this cast, so you see the first metatarsal head is much deeper. So I'll correct a bit for that and make this a bit lower. Don't be too precise at this stage. Maybe the toe off is a bit too much. Okay. Am I happy with this? Almost. So let's check out how I'm doing on the right side. Okay. Not bad. Now, what I do now is leave this cage. Hide it. And go for the second control. This is this control. It has a lot more control points, but not too much. So it's still easy to model. Let's activate the control points. I see here's a bit. Let's crank up the transparency a bit. Well, you can go on forever with this. At a certain point you have to stop. But you see at this phase I do more detailed deformation of the last. Well, you can go as far as you want. Now, here's another great thing in V7, what I can do with these control points. I want to match a large part of the last with the scan, but I don't want to match every part of the scan and last. I want to keep space here, maybe I want to keep extra space around the fifth toe, but now I select the control points of the region that I want to match with the scan. I have to activate the scan again. And what I do now is pull those control points to the cast. Let me show this again. I'll undo and I'll redo. You see that those control points, they suck themselves to the scan. You see that here the scan is inside the last and here the scan is outside the last. Sometimes it's just a half a millimeter or something, so sometimes you want extra space, sometimes you want less space. Another thing is that this cast is quite rough and I want a smooth surface, so at certain places the last will go inside the scan and other places it will go outside the scan, and how much and where and the accuracy and all those kinds of things, well, it's a question of try and error. Do it a lot and try to imagine how it will feel in a later shoe. You know, you have to be a shoemaker. Okay, but there are some points I'm not happy with the shape yet. I want here some extra. Let's lock the scan again. Space. Maybe here. What you also can do is now this arrow, the blue, the red and the green arrow, they point in X, Y, Z directions. What you can also do is change the direction of those arrows to the normal of the surface. So I'll align to object, and now you see the difference of direction of the gumball. This set of arrows is called the gumball. Okay, well, that comes close, a lot closer. Some extra room here on the top is also advisable. Extra space around the ankle, but all those little adjustments I can also do later. What I'm first now do is check again how I'm on the right side. You see, there are now two big differences between left and right. Here on the left side you see everything fits quite nicely except the ankle. That has not enough space yet, but I'll do that later. But here you see things get out of hand or foot. So maybe this is a good moment to decide, will I break the connection between left and right? One of the things I'm thinking I want to think about at that moment is the shape of the toe box. That's one thing I want to keep the same, more or less the same, optical the same all the time. So if I see that on the right side the foot is just a little bit wider, I have not enough space, I change it on this side and make more space. So you see here at the toe, here's a lot of space, and here there isn't. Another thing is, if I look at the blueprints, I get another idea. You see that here the toe is even wider, and here. So I know that this is okay for a dressed shoe. I can even go a bit more narrow. For a working boot I want to have more space. In this case I think I'll just make the toe box a bit more pointy. You see? Let's change the gumball to world. Okay. It's better, you have a better idea of the shape when I change the transparency. Okay, I'll leave the blueprints for what they are. And now I'm going to break the connection between left and right, and I simply do that by changing right. Let's restore the transparency again. Check these. You see now I get a warning that the history that's in this case the connection between left and right is broken. So now when I change something on the left side, the right side won't follow anymore. So you have to think about when to break this connection. And here's some. Okay. See, here's a lot of space. Okay. It's not perfect, but good enough at the moment. Maybe on this side I change it a bit. Okay. Uh, Select the control points of the region that I want to pull to the cast again. Okay, pull. Where to pull to the cast. Enter. Okay. Oh, you see something went wrong. I accidentally selected also a few control points from the other last. So I'll just redo this. Deselect these control points and pull again. Okay. So now both lasts are pulled more or less against the cast. You see here's so bit difference. But there are still a few things that I'm not happy with. Here the ankle, maybe around the heel, maybe some small things. So maybe this is a good moment to switch to an even more the last most detailed level of the last itself. Therefore I have to leave this blue last, bake it, because as you could see in my earlier video, this blue last is the last that has been generated by Grasshopper, so I have to bake these lasts. So I open Grasshopper and here are the lasts, and I bake them. Which layer? SubD. Okay. I'll get rid of the Grasshopper last and the target cage. So what I now have is the SubD last. This object has a lot of control points, not as many as the scan, Now this mesh, it's very hard to modify this scan on a control point level. You can still modify this last on a control point level, and I can even get it more close to the cast. I don't want to have it too close to the cast. When I'm too close to the cast, you will see that the surface isn't nice and smooth anymore. Let's get rid of the last of the scan at this moment. You see now it's a nice and smooth last, but there are still things I want to change, but I want to change them on a very detailed level. Without losing the smoothness of the surface. I will select again the area. Let's go to left first. The control points that I want to pull to the last. Not these. These control points are not exactly on the surface, but I don't want the surface to match exactly with the cast. That's one of the difficulties of making lasts, where to match the cast and where not to. Okay, and I'll pull them to the cast again. You see now it fits nicely. It's all a bit underneath the surface. You see, if I zoom in, it's just half a millimeter or something. You can easily later on correct for this, but now I can also let's lock this mesh again. Let's go to the object again. I want some extra space here underneath the ankle. I know it can hurt there, a bit less curved. I see a little bit of, I can make a bit of support here behind the ball. It's called a retrocapital support. I don't like it there exactly. What I also can do is here it's rounded around the heel. For orthopedics, often you keep it that way, but I do want some extra space. When it's very close there, you might push the foot forward in the shoe, so the toes will be squeezed and you will have too much space around the heel. So in this case I change the drag mode and select the control points where I want some extra space. Just give it a little bit extra. What I also can do is go the control points that are in the neighborhood go along with the movement I let these points do. It's called soft transform. You see all the other control points follow. I'll show it again. make it exaggerate so you can see what's happening here. A little bit, just enough. So maybe here again, and you can play around with it. You can. There's not really a point where you can say, okay, now I'm completely satisfied with the shape. uh, you can go on for days if you want. Um, it's just a question, when are you happy with the shape or not? The most important thing is that now as a shoemaker I can model the last in any way I want. A lot of cut systems, they don't allow me to do this, and this is what I want to do as a last maker. And if you have certain ideas about what shape you um, want to make, it's very annoying if you are not allowed to model it in that way that you have in your mind. So I always thought, okay, if I can't do in cut what I can do by hand, by using plaster or pur or whatever, and grinding machines and wood, and just do it by hand. If I can't do it, if I don't have the same freedom in cut as I have by hand, I don't want to use cut. Okay. Well, I think this is quite where I want to be. Um, I'll just leave right at I see a little bit here. Let's go to drag mode here again. Gumball, line to world. Okay. Just a little bit to get a much nicer last. Now it's time to finish the last and send it to the milling machine. To send it to the milling machine, most CAM systems, they want an STL. They want a mesh. The most common format is STL. So I have to export this SubD last as an STL. I cannot do that with this hole on top, so I have to close the hole on there. I'll do that. First I have to make sure that it's exactly straight, a planar. So, okay, now it's exactly planar. This is also easy when you making an insole or a supplement, and you push material underneath the last and grind it in the right shape. You have always a reference of the top of the last. If you keep it horizontal, it's very easy to keep the position of the last as you want it. Okay. Um, Now I'll top this off. You see, now it's closed, and now I'll make a mesh out of it. Mesh this thing. Not too dense. This is okay, I know. Oh, this is interesting too. This object, this is a SubD object, and when you mesh an object, when it comes from a SubD, you get a very nice mesh. You'll see this. This is also a big improvement of SubD. Okay, now I have the mesh here. I'll switch to wireframe. You see, this is a very nice mesh. If I go to flat shaded mode, you can see all the facets. Now you see here the facets of the mesh. It's a real nice mesh. I can send this to the milling machine and make it, change it into wood. We also have the right last. I can do the same adjustments I did on the left last. I won't repeat myself now, and I'll leave it here. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye.